We were just live at this hour to Honduras. There was an outcome, an official statement regarding the electoral process in the country. The system of transmission of electoral results trap is a true trap. Its deficiencies led for there to not exist no certainty about the results, especially at a presidential level. Let's go once more to Honduras. At this hour, there are new outcomes regarding the electoral process being held in the country on November 30th, where no candidate has been declared victory, and also there has been denunciations about how this has been an irregular process and filled as well with foreign interference. Let's listen.
167 JND at a national level up to Wednesday, December the 3rd at 8 in the morning. It has been transmitted from the centers of scanning all to the servers located in Tigo, and then to the servers of the political parties. 15,297 acts of the elective presidential level, equivalent to the 79.8% of the total of these 46 that are equivalent to the 86.6% errors, inconsistencies among the biometric register and the content of the act that was transmitted through the trap. The errors and inconsistencies reflected in this 86.6% of the acts present a difference equivalent to 982,412 votes. 3. Structural failures deliberate from the which was done on November 9, and it shows structural failures in the system during the simulations. It showed a low capacity in the transmission of the acts. The way of scrutiny was not presented, and there was the inexistence of the way to divulge the information and the automatic assignation of extraordinary votes. Some deficiencies were restored, but they were not given the necessary guarantees for the integrity of the results. 4. External auditories that were ignored and internal sabotage. On Saturday, November 29th, one day before the elections, we received a report of external audit which affirmed that the critical inconsistencies continued. Then I went to read it in its entirety, but the session was abandoned, and someone gave declarations lying publicly and sabotaged the denounced in the forum, stopping decisions that are urgent.
We are listening to the statements of the Chancellor of the National Electoral Council. Let's listen.
That needed to be adopted to fix the deficiencies. 5. Automatic adulteration of the number of the votes on the night of the election. Thousands of members of polling stations were able to see that the system of transmission trap was not reading or interpreting correctly the numbers, the handwritten numbers on the acts, assigning numbers that were irreal of up to 600 or 700 votes, adulterating what was established in the acts. 6. Automized fraud, transferring votes among candidates and parties. The system was lacking positions and also moved votes from one candidate to another and from a party to another, confirming the manipulation that was denounced in the audios. 7. Retention inside of the system of 16,615 acts during 40 hours, such as the audios reveal. 16,615 acts, equivalent to 2 million of votes.
We are live at this hour to Honduras. High electoral authorities are offering statements at this hour, remarking that there has been inconsistencies, that there has been as well transfer of votes among candidates, automatized fraud. This is an internal sabotage, he said, and affirmed that the system as well of transmission of results, especially at presidential and deputy levels, are at this moment fraudulent. There are also some difficulties at this moment, technical difficulties at this moment during this press conference that was called. Let's recall that Honduras, after 4 days, has no presidential announcement at this hour. Live to Honduras. We were listening to statements of Marlon Ochoa, the Counselor of the National Electoral Authorities. This high official, the electoral official, denounced at this hour that there has been internal sabotage. Those were his words. He also denounced deficiencies led by the TREB, the system of report of results. Let's listen once more to the statements of the high official.
Continuous interruptions from then, a total informative blackout, functional to the fraud in the same way as it was produced in 2017. Point 9. Results that were incoherent and wrong adds of numbers of values published in different sections of the page of the spreading of the results do not agree among themselves. Fake values and numbers that are inconsistent internally, impossible in a system that has been audited. Mathematics done at the measure of bipartisanship with public support of Washington. 10. Sabotage in the transmission of data and the failure of satellite. The channels of transmission failed deliberately. Plus, over 700 satellites antennas were not inhabilitated, and channels, and I say clearly, many channels failed simultaneously. It was proposed to the CNN to instruct the polling stations to remove manually the SIM cards of the biometrical equipment. As a counselor, I opposed this measure because I knew that it was an operation to deactivate the traceability and open spaces for digital fraud. Smartmatic confirmed these failures. The audios that were presented to the public ministry also contain this part of the sinister plan. Conclusions. These facts that I described are not isolated, they are part of a coordinated operation among internal forces of the dome of bipartisanship and a foreign interference allied, that is imposing a decision, an electoral decision that corresponds to the sovereign people. It is trapped and manipulated in a system of transmission that is not only responsible of the preliminary results of the night of the election, but also of the results of the definite counting, because finally the 19,106 acts of each elective level are scanned, are interpreted, and they are part of the result and are divulged through this same system. December 5th of 2025. I wait for your questions.
Those were the words of Marlon Ochoa, Councillor of the National Electoral Council. He is putting on the table, he is confirming an electoral fraud underway, an electoral plot underway. Let's listen now to the press conference that is about to take place regarding this electoral fraud. In Honduras, there has been an electoral. Let's listen.
From the National Council, or the other two councillors were on the names. I haven't given them. From a few while ago, we have been doing this denunciation in a public way from October. I have received some calls from you. I will not say the names of some journalists, even, and some messages telling me that with what the press is seeing, with what the Honduran people is seeing, evidently it is confirmed that the plan through the audios is in operation. The names we have given them, not only in a public way, but also through different denunciations that have been presented facing the public ministry, and that today, facing the evident operation of this fraud, it corresponds to act. Good night. Today, the Councilor President Ana Paula Hall was signaling that they were going to proceed in a rigorous way against ACT. In what way, when, and are you going to be part of these actions against this transmission of the results? Well, the failures in the system, how good that now the councillors are also joining to denounce them. We denounced them from the moment in which a drill was done on November 9th, and we were able to see the failures. What was the reaction from also part of the press, of national spokespersons and international spokespeople? The reaction was censoring the denunciation. Some were saying that the drill was to do these mistakes. That was the reaction. You probably remember it. At that moment, the failures in the system were evident. This drill, it was evident as well that the channels of transmission of the acts failed. We were not presented with the system of general scrutiny, and we were not presented with the system of divulgation. And now the councillors a while ago, we started the contingency, and today I have to say the Honduran people, they are lying to you. The system of contingency 2, which had to be ready from November 12th, according to data, it means over 3 weeks ago. Still, the company ACD is finishing it. There are 2 floors up in this hotel doing the trials of that system because it is not ready, and it wasn't ready during the drill. Also, the general scrutiny system, or the system of disclosure, the same day of the election at 4 or 5 at the afternoon, they were doing the last adjustments of this system of disclosure of result in general scrutiny. We were the only ones who warned the Honduran people of this part of the plot of the fraud that we're living today. The process of contingency 2 cannot even start. What is the process of contingency 2? It is the process through which the physical acts are scanned that come here to Tegucigalpa and then they are processed and transcribed here in Tegucigalpa since they were in process by the polling stations. That process that is urgent and necessary to move immediately the results of the election today, December 5th, 5 days after the electoral process, it is not finished. Additionally, the group cannot say that it was not aware of this situation. We received numerous warnings, not only from the part of the technicians themselves at the Commission of Follow-up of the TREB, but also from the Commission of Follow-up from the external audit and even from the own audit company CGTS. These warnings are documented. We received documents, the pages in which these inconsistencies were proven, and even the night before the election in a session of the group in which one of the councillors left the session and the other one suspended it. I read a document that we received that day at 2:44 in the afternoon on Saturday 29th of November. It was decided to boycott the denounce. It was ignored, and now today the Honduran people is seeing that it is concreted and that hurtfully through this system it is being played with the popular will.
We are listening at this moment to Marlon Ochoa, Councillor of the National Electoral Authorities, who has confirmed at this moment an electoral fraud. He's offering a press conference to confirm what Hondurans have been denouncing for several months, even prior to these general elections held on November 30th, in which over 6 million Hondurans went to the polls. Let's listen once more.
If you ask me, Ricardo, what can the Honduran people expect in this Christmas and what are we facing? Well, I believe that it exists unanimity in the Honduran people that we are perhaps in the election that is the least transparent of our democratic history, and I believe that this election will be remembered like such in history, not only because of what we're seeing through what is being concreted in the system of disclosure, not only through the buy of votes that happened on the days of the elections as well, not only through the intimidation to which thousands of people were under in all of the in all the parts of Honduras, but also it is a election that is not transparent and it's fraudulent due to the vulgar intervention, foreign intervention that has existed. Never in the history of the Latin American region had there existed a manipulation of an election like the one that happened in this election. We are facing the most manipulated election of our history, overcoming even the election of 2013 and 2017. The Honduran people, what I can say to them is that for me, they can expect transparency, absolute transparency, such as we have done 6th October when we denounced the plan that today we're seeing happening. We will continue denouncing and fighting at the internal of the electoral organ so that the popular will manipulated, but in what is left of the process is respected. The bipartisanship inside the electoral organ is reaching to agreements of which we are not part. We don't even part of the discussions. I imagine that part of those agreements are not discussed inside the electoral organ, but outside of its doors due to the domes of these parties that are historically accustomed to steal the popular will. Good night, Counselor. The opposition says that you are part to blame in these delays because in your moment you did some actions to stop, and in different moments as well, Counselor. Well, look, you can internally consult here in the National Electoral Council. I have been the counselor that has pushed the most the success of this system of transmission of results, preliminary results. The fact that we started during July was precisely to avoid one of the stages in which they were planning to manipulate the popular will. The company ACD, the company CGTS accepted the times from the moment in which they were given this contract from August the 30th of this year. They had 3 months to develop these systems, a time that is very superior to, for example, the one that the company of general elections had in 2021. The boycott in 2021 was such that the contract with the Argentinian company MSA was signed by who was then the president of the National Electoral Council, counselor for the National Party, 37 days before the electoral process. In this process, the company ACD accepted the timeline, gave itself the timeline as part of the contract, and they had the 90 days that they disposed to be able to develop this system. So in this 90 days, do not have a doubt, do not doubt that from the part of this group we have pushed the move forward, the accelerated move of the timeline and all of its times. But I'm also going to add something else. We have never hide the delays and the inconsistencies that this system had. The internal censorship has been such that they even tried to shut me up the afternoon before the elections of Saturday, when we were exposing these situations facing a group of observers. In that moment they said that we should not raise false alarms, and we now see into concrete the failure in the technological dimension of this election. It has many dimensions in which this electoral process has failed, but the technological dimension is the first tool, the main tool through which they are manipulating the results, and the Honduran people is fully aware of this. Good night, Counselor. With all of you have explained at this moment is confirmed then a coup, an electoral coup, and likewise today, that is Thursday, December 4th, they should condemn the foreign interference in the elections. And what do you ask to the international observers? I'm going to start with your last question on the missions of electoral international observation. We have received several reports, preliminary reports, and without a single miss, they have in common is that they ignore the elephant in the room. They ignore not one single one of these reports mention that the President of the United States intervened directly and censored a candidate and supported another candidate. Not one. Even when we are facing a situation that had never happened before, not one of the reports, the preliminary reports of the observation missions, mention it, violating the spirit of the democratic letter of the OAE. Imagine yourselves that the President Xiomara Cáceres today did a post and said the candidate with which we're going to the elections of Congo, for example, is such. Do not vote for such. That would be something absurd to imagine. Well, something like that didn't only happen, but it was worse than that. It was post done by the president of the main military and economical world power of the world in flagrant intervention to the sovereign affairs, ignoring this in the totality of the reports of the observation missions, international ones. It only makes the observers accomplices of the steal of the popular will that today we're being witness of on the electoral coup, where evidently today we are facing a hit that pretends to violate and take the sovereignty, the popular sovereignty, on the path through the path of voting. It is pretended to violate the popular will through the way of the ballot boxes, through the intimidation, the threats, not only of this country, not only of the president of the most powerful nation in the world, but also through the organized crime in each one of the neighborhoods and colonies of the main cities of the country. I am sure that you have listened already several audios and several messages that were shared through social media, that they were trying to harass the militants of a particular political party for them not to go out to spread information of their political party, and especially not to vote for them. In Honduras, we are facing a situation of hypocrisy, absolute hypocrisy. Do you know why? Because what has been said by hundreds of spokespersons, by hundreds of communication media, by hundreds of observers, is that we lived a civic peaceful day and with a high demonstration of democratic culture. This has been said by many observers, ignoring completely all of the actions of intimidation to which the Honduran people were submitted to, the prosecution, the murders even that happened in the period before the election. So to the international observers, I say the lack of mention even in its reports of this intervention turns you into accomplices of the taking of the popular will.
We continue listening to the questions of the press that is about to conclude. We were just listening to Marlon Ochoa, Counselor of the National Electoral Authorities, and has confirmed an electoral fraud. He has just confirmed an electoral fraud. The Honduran people are facing the least transparent election and the most manipulated one in the history of the country. That's what he said, marked by foreign interference, internal sabotage, inconsistencies, automatized fraud, transfer of votes among candidates from one party to the other, failure of satellite signal, an informative blackout, mathematics, he said, made to the size of the leaders of the partisanship, confirming the manipulation denounced prior to the elections and also denounced on several platforms, including to a multi-platform telesur by the candidate of the ruling Libre Party, Rixi Moncada. This is all for the moment. Stay tuned with telesur English for more information on this event.